So we're going to route our headstock binding here, and just to show you, we're using a rabbiting bit here. So we've got this big bearing, and so that'll ride along the edge of the headstock, and our cutter here will just take off a very small amount and just leave a little shelf that we'll be able to put our binding on. So I'm going to get my PPE on and we're going to route this up. So we've got our headstock template back out, and we're going to use that to cut out a bubinga veneer to use on the front, and we'll try and cut a second one if we can as well to use on the back. If not, we'll use a different piece of bubinga, but we're just going to score around this now, cut it out and get ready to glue it in place. So we forgot to turn the camera on for this, but just like you've seen us do with all the other veneers, we glued both sides, wait for it to become tacky, ironed it on with some greaseproof paper, and again we've got it clamped in place, and we've got a clamping caul on the top and the back as well. So we'll just leave that again to dry overnight. So again, as usual, it's the next day and we're going to take all our clamps off. So that's our veneer on anyway. Nicely glued down, no bubbles or any problems like that. Not too much squeeze out through the holes or along the sides. So as we did with the other veneers, we're going to trim all this up and we'll get ready to start binding this headstock. So that's our headstock veneer all trimmed down, and we've given it a quick sand and we've just rubbed it with some white spirits to pull all the dust out, and it just gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put some binding all around the headstock, and the reason we're doing this is for this section here to get bound before we stick our fingerboard down, as this part will just stick just under the edge of the fingerboard. So we'll just press on ahead as you saw us doing with the body. We'll just get these parts taped in place, and then we'll wick some acetone all the way around the edge. Okay, so we've got our two side pieces taped in place at the moment, and just like before, we're just going to wick some acetone down along the edges, and we'll leave that overnight to dry, and then we'll come back and do our top piece and our two side pieces here. And we've left everything a little bit long so we can cut some nice miters on the corners and that, just to make sure that everything looks nice and we've no exposed edges. So just like before, just going to wick some acetone in along the edge, and then we'll leave it. So that's the majority of our headstock binding done, and we lost some of the footage. We forgot to hit record when we were doing most of it, but it's just pretty much like we did with all the others, or like we did with the body. Just gone along the side. We've a lot of trimming up to do. We've just got our top piece on here, and we're just kind of trying to shape it a little bit differently, so we're not exactly copying the Gibson headstock. We don't want Mark Agnesi coming after me. So we'll let this dry and put some more tape on. We're going to put some more acetone on, and then we'll come back to it and scrape it after everything's dried up. So we've got all our binding done on our headstock now, and we've scraped it down nice and flush. So we're just rubbing the top down now with a bit of white spirit. We've just sanded it first, and so this will just take away all the dust, and it'll also let us see what the final headstock will look like after we've done our finish on it. So it's going to look pretty nice. I'll just take some of the dust off the sides as well. So that should look pretty okay. A small bit more shaping we might do up at the tip here, but other than that we're looking good, and we can move on now. So aside from our strap buttons, the last hole we have to drill is for our output jack, just along the side here. So we're going to drill a small pilot hole first, and then we're going to come back with a spade bit and open it up completely. So as I said, we'll just start with our pilot hole here. So we're just going to start fretting up the fretboard now, while we have it nice and flat and that. And so we're just using this Evo Gold fret wire here, which is rather lovely. So we're just lining it up, just slightly proud of the binding, and then just taking our snips so we know exactly how long to make the fret, and just a quick snip, and then we just put them in our little holder here, and we'll just go along all the way until we have all 22 frets ready to go. Okay, so now we've got all our frets cut to length, all 22 of them. What we're going to do next is, if you can just see the bottom of the fret here, that little barbed area, that's called the fret tang. We're just going to be cutting off the first couple of millimeters of that, and that will just allow the fret to seat in properly over a little lip of binding here, and we'll just sit in completely flat. So what we're going to do is, we take our appropriately named fret tang nippers, and we just line up our fret inside it, just taking out the first little bit. And if you can just see that there, you can see how we've just taken away the first little bit of the tang, and that will mean, as we said, the fret can then sit in properly with just the little top part overhanging the binding, and we can then sand or file that down flat. So we'll just do the same with the other side, and we'll go along all the frets and do that, just putting them in and just clipping off the little end piece there. So that means when our fret goes in now, it'll sit in completely flat, and with just a little overhang, and won't interfere with the binding. So we're just going to start fretting up the fretboard. And so we've got all our frets here numbered in exactly where their positions are. We've got a syringe full of some glue, so we'll just be putting a small bead of glue into each of the fret slots, then placing our fret in, and then using our fret and caul here in our drill press to press it down home. And so we'll just go along and do the whole board. So that's all of our frets in, and we've left it a little while to allow the glue that we did use to set up. So we're going to prepare our fretboard now to get ready to attach it to the neck. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to clip off all the sharp fret ends that are overhanging a little bit, but then the actual fret job of leveling, crowning and polishing, etc., that'll all happen right at the end after it's been attached. So we'll just very quickly just use our nippers here, and we're just cutting off the ends of these frets that are overhanging, any of the larger ones, and we'll just do that for them all and get it ready to go on.